Good morning, wherever you are. We're now at the end of the third week of this CAS online workshop, and I hope that you're getting a lot from it. There have been some great comments and posts during the week, and I just want to generally talk about week 3. It really focused on the initial part on the quality of reflections, and in particular, you were given some reflections to look at, and what was impressive was that you were able to analyse the reflections so well and particularly identify what learning outcomes have been achieved. Because as a CAS coordinator, that's one of the things that you'll be expected to do, is to be able to identify how the students have actually met the learning outcomes mainly through their written reflections. One of the things about reflections which is terribly important is that you actually have time to teach reflection. If this isn't timetabled at the moment in your teaching load, then you need to talk to your school administrators to ensure that you actually have time to teach and also discuss reflections with students. You're certainly going to need time to carry out the 3 interviews that are required for CAS. And as other elements of the core, for example, the extended essay require this reflection, it's important that the administrators realise that reflection for CAS is just as important. Okay, moving on from that, we had some really good suggestions about projects. A personal favourite of mine was a suggestion about night running leading to a marathon, and I've had personally a number of students that have decided to do training for a marathon and then compete in them. It's something which is pretty demanding, as I've also done a couple of marathons myself. In addition to that, with great local ideas, Kelsey's suggestion, for example, about running a field day in her local area would require quite a bit of coordination and acquisition of materials. I thought that was really good. I also like, from a number of you, suggested actually carrying out English teaching assignments in local schools near wherever you are. I think that those have a lot going for them, because it actually ensures that students are involved on an ongoing basis. So I've had a look at a lot of those projects. Just one comment I would make about fundraising. If your students are going to fundraise for a particular event or a disaster, for example, then please make sure that they do more than just the fundraising. They have some engagement with the charity, for example, if it's a disaster, or that they're involved in planning and carrying out some creative exercise. So, now, one last point about the projects, and there are a couple that Marjorie suggested which remind me of this, is that projects don't need to be just in service or involve service. Marjorie had a couple of suggestions actually about producing jewellery, and I think that's also really important to remember, that the projects can also be in creativity and activity as well as service. Okay, the last point in the week actually looked at running overseas projects, and I think one has to approach this with a great deal of care. It has to be more than service tourism, for example. So if service is involved, have a very close look at the itinerary as to what that means. There have to be clear goals and opportunities for the students to reflect. and you should try and avoid becoming elitist so that only the kids that can afford the fares go. Many of you commented on that your focus is in your local community, which is really excellent. Okay, so now it's moving on to the last week, which is really a very practical one. I'm going to ask you to analyse CAS in your school. So if you're not authorised, it will be basically outlining how you think CAS is going to be carried out. If you are authorised, it will be asking you to do a SWOT analysis of CAS in your school. So what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses? Then you'll have the opportunity to ask some questions about CAS procedures. I guess the biggest one that you'll face about assessment is simply passing or failing the students, which you have to do on IBIS, which is the exam system that's used by your school. And you have to make a statement by the 1st of June for schools doing the May exams and the 1st of November if you're doing the November exams. And there you simply have to state whether the student has passed or failed CAS. Then we're going to look at, you're being asked to look at in groups at what you would want in a CAS portfolio. Now this is meant to be a collaborative piece of work, and so you are supposed to contact each other early in the week. Some of you are a bit reluctant to enter the posts early in the week, so it's important this week you do. And lastly, we're asking you to look at really one of the principles of service learning, which is can be linked to CAS, and we're going to ask you to link CAS to the subject that you're teaching. A couple of last comments. I do my best to answer your posts. However, given the number of people in the group, it's not possible always to answer every post. I think we need to be clear about that. And one of the others is that the best part of this has come when you respond to each other's posts. That way that you get some feedback from other people other than me about the ideas you have in CAS. Now, this is the last week coming up, and I've hoped that everybody will have finished posting the whole course by Wednesday, the 31st of October. I'll give you more notice about the completion requirements in the announcement section. Goodbye.